Alabama football now 4-0 after earning a 45-23 win over Texas A&M on last week inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Crimson Tide head coach Nick Saban very proud of the fan base staying all 4 quarters despite a little rain shower happening early on. He did mention the things that this year's team needs to improve on, can improve on, and also delivered a little challenge to the media. Guys, be more critical of this program. But at the end of the day, Alabama got the win. Physical ball game against Texas A&M, and head coach Jimbo Fisher and the fans stayed all 4 quarters. But we are locked and loaded. New week, fresh energy, fresh segment of shows on In My Own Words, Touchdown Alabama magazine, Stephen Smith. As we do each and every week, we lay out the 5 most valuable players, the 5 impact guys from the previous game. And looking back at the Texas A&M matchup, this guy will remain an MVP until he does something that's not worthy of that honor, and that is quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. 3rd straight game in which he completed at least 70% of his throws. Against the Aggies, he was 22 of 30 passing, 73.3%, 387 passing yards. First 300-yard performance for Tua, career high for him in that regard. Accounted for 5 touchdowns, 4 passing, 1 rushing, another career high. His 4th straight game in which he's captained Alabama's offense to at least 500 yards. Does he really need to play a full game in order to win the Heisman Trophy? That's the question, because to me, when you look at what Tua has done for an Alabama offense that in the previous 11 years under Nick Saban, it has been deemed as boring and vanilla. And this is with quarterbacks like Greg McElroy, A.J. McCarron, and Jacob Coker that won national championships here at the Capstone, but with those offenses, boring vanilla. This comes from media personnel. This comes from opposition. This has come from even some Alabama fans. And now you insert a young man from Hawaii, and this offense has become must-see TV. You can't use the bathroom. You can't go to the grocery store. You can't even look down at your phone and check Twitter without immediately popping back up and noticing, did Alabama just score? Did Tua Tagovailoa just throw a touchdown pass? I mean, there was a tweet on Twitter over the weekend, I think it was put out by Jermaine Funnyman Johnson, in which he said, this group is so disrespectful, I can't even organize my snacks without a touchdown being scored. That's what it's become. Alabama's offense is must-see TV. It's like going on tour with the Jackson 5. It's like going on tour with Bobby Brown and New Edition. The moment you take your eyes off Alabama's offense, you just missed another play that will be on SportsCenter 5 hours later. That's what this offense has become with Tagovailoa. And I'm not trying to discredit the likes of Will Greer from West Virginia, Drew Lock of Missouri, Kyler Murray of Oklahoma, Trace McSorley of Penn State. I mean, these guys are good quarterbacks, but when you look at what Tua's done in limited action, it's more impressive than most 4-year quarterbacks that have been day 1 starters. In 2 seasons, he's accounted for 23 touchdown passes. This year alone, 58 of 80 passing. This is 72.5%, 1,033 passing yards, 12 touchdowns. He has yet to be intercepted. And this is the guy that a lot of people felt like would be turnover prone because he loves to throw the football. On the flip side, he's given Nick Saban the monopoly. Everything Nick Saban wants. A guy that can manage the game, protect the football, and at the same time, excite a fan base who's been waiting on a quarterback that can do it all for the longest of time. Also, when you look at this season with Tua, Alabama converting 56.6% on third down. It's 85% in the red zone, scoring on 17 of 20 attempts. I mean, what more could you want? In limited action, and he's only going to get better. There's going to be one game this season, whether it's LSU, whether it's Mississippi State, who is highly underrated, by the way, whether it's Auburn, there's going to be one game this season where Tua may play the full 4 quarters just due to the magnitude of the game, the magnitude of the environment, and what's on the line. But for what he's done right now, in limited action, this A&M game was the first game in which Alabama did not put up 50 points. It's way more significant than other guys, quarterback-wise, in the Heisman conversation. Number 1, MVP, Tua Tagovailoa. Moving on down to number 2 here, offensively for the Crimson Tide, when you talk about impact players, gotta go with sophomore wide receiver Devonta Smith. There's just a chemistry between Smith and Tagovailoa, and it goes deeper than the national championship game. He targets Jerry Jeudy, yes he does. He targets Henry Ruggs III, yes he does. He does also target Jalen Waddle, but it's like when Tua needs a big play, when it's do or die, when Bama's gotta have it, some way, form, or fashion, number 6 always finds his hands on the football from Tua, Devonta Smith. And in this game, 4 catches for the young man from Louisiana, 56 receiving yards, including a 30-yard touchdown catch, first score of the game from the Crimson Tide, where offensive line protects Tua well, gives him all the time in the world to throw. He's able to feel his way in the pocket, step up, and fire a shot to Smith, who reaches out, full extension, grabs the ball in the end zone, touchdown, has a little celebratory shout afterwards, but young man playing great ball right now. And despite his size, soaking wet, 165, 170 pounds, but despite his size, he's physical, man. This kid is breaking tackles. I saw on a couple of his receptions against the Aggies, refused to go down at the first contact, breaking arm tackles, shaking off leg tackles. I mean, I don't know what this kid's squatting, but he is breaking tackles after contact. He is getting those extra yards. He is moving the ball downfield. Thus far this season, Smith, 14 catches, second on the team, 260 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. He's averaging 18.57 yards per catch. My number 2 guy, Devonta Smith, Smitty, getting it done on my end. Moving on down to number 3 here, sticking with the offense. Irv Smith Jr. is getting NFL scouts drooling over him. O.J. Howard is somewhere in Tampa, Florida going, where was this offense when I was here? Where was this high utilization of the tight end position when I was here? I mean, I had Lane Kiffin, and he just gave me the ball whenever he felt like it, which was seldom, unless it was in a college football playoff situation. But y'all boys got Coach Knox and Dan Enos and Josh Gaddis, and y'all tight ends eating. I mean, where was I when this thought of bringing the new coaches in was being conceived? A lot of questions being thrown in by O.J. Howard, but as much as I want to say Irv Smith Jr., gotta give the 3rd MVP to Hale Hentges, the senior out of Missouri. This guy is primarily known as a blocking tight end, but he is way more athletic than what people and the experts give him credit for. This entire tight end group is athletic, from Irv Smith to Hentges to Miller Forrestall to Major Tennyson, even down to Kedrick James. But what a game for Hentges, man. 2 touchdown receptions. His first ever multi-scoring game of his career. Career high, 2 touchdown receptions in one game. Caught them both in the second quarter. including a 23-yard reception from Tagovailoa, to which he was coming across the middle, wide open. Tua hits him on the crossing pattern. Hale shakes a couple of tackles, gets into the painted grass. Fans going bonkers for him. Teammates very much so excited. Coaching staff jumping up and down because, once again, known primarily as a blocker, does not really get that time to escape out and catch a touchdown pass. But hey, did it twice in this game. Very proud of the young man from Jefferson City, Missouri, Hale Hentges, third MVP. We now go to defense for my fourth guy, and how about the freshman Patrick Surtain II? Nick Saban mentioned had a couple of mental errors in the game that he's going to clean up and that he will clean up. But the comparison for this man from the moment he enrolled to throughout the summer to this present moment has been Minkah Fitzpatrick. Everybody talks about, oh man, Surtain is Fitzpatrick 2.0. He's Minkah on steroids. He's big, he's physical, he's strong, he's instinctive, he's got ball skills. The moment he learns this defense in and out, you're not going to be able to stop him. You're not going to be able to keep him off the field. The man's just an absolute baller. And in the game against A&M, held his own for the most part. 3 tackles, had a pass breakup, had one of 2 interceptions off quarterback Kellen Mond, and he even kept sophomore wide receiver Jamon Osborne from getting into the stats column. Jamon Osborne did not catch a single football. And here is somebody that Mark Passwaters, who covers Texas A&M for AggieYale.com, part of the Rivals Network, said is a bigger version of Christian Kirk, but Surtain handled Osborne. Did not record a single reception in the football game. So maybe he didn't have the big Minkah effect, taking a couple of pick sixes back, but the young man recorded his first takeaway of his career, had 3 tackles, and kept one of the more explosive receivers in the country in the SEC, and on Texas A&M's roster, quiet, doing nothing. So number 4, Patrick Surtain II, looking like his pops, who was a Pro Bowl cornerback for 11 years in the National Football League, 4th MVP here. Going down to my 5th and final impact player, we move to Alabama's defensive line, where we pick up defensive end Isaiah Buggs. There were several NFL scouts sitting below me at Bryant-Denny Stadium in terms of the Miami Dolphins, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Los Angeles Rams, New York Jets, Atlanta Falcons. And I'm pretty sure each one of those guys thought synchronizingly to themselves, if Buggs can play against every other Southeastern Conference program in the same way he plays against Texas A&M, this guy is a first-round pick. In the game against the Aggies, Buggs, 7 tackles, 3.5 tackles for a loss of 12 yards, 3 sacks for a loss of 12 yards, 2 quarterback hurries. He limited Aggies running back Travion Williams to 31 yards rushing, and here's a young man that entered the contest averaging 133 yards rushing per game, leading the Southeastern Conference. Also, if it wasn't for Buggs, Kellen Mond would have became the first quarterback to rush for 100-plus yards against a Nick Saban-coached Alabama defense, and the first player overall since Ole Miss's Jordan Wilkins in 2017 to rush for over 100 yards, period. Jordan Wilkins had 101 yards in Alabama's dismantling of Ole Miss 66-3, but Kellen Mond was having a big day. And then Isaiah Buggs brought the sack stick, and it dropped Mond down from over 100 yards to 98, the number he ended up finishing with. So, huge game for Buggs. And the last 2 years against Texas A&M, here's a guy that's totaled these numbers: 17 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 quarterback hurries. He has feasted on the Aggies. If he can take this type of intensity and channel it into every other conference team he's playing, this guy, bar none, first-round pick. Huge performance by Bugs over the weekend. So going back over now, 5 MVPs from the Texas A&M matchup. Number 1, Tua Tagovailoa will remain an MVP until he does something otherwise. I believe this guy will get the Heisman Trophy simply based on what he has done to ignite Alabama's offense, even in the limited amount of time he's been in there. Number 2, Devonta Smith, wide receiver. Number 3, Hale Hentges, tight end. Number 4, Patrick Surtain, the second cornerback. Number 5, Isaiah Buggs, defensive end. Taking our first break here on In My Own Words. Upon our return, I want to talk about Alabama's run game and the offensive line. Is Nick Saban saving the rushing attack for a big moment? Or are there really problems on the offensive line that we really have to dive into? That's coming up on the other side of the break. Don't touch that dial, folks. We'll be back.